I'm just so pro entrepreneur. And over the years, I've just been around a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs and founders, build a company that they grew to hate. And the reason they grew to hate it is it was not because there wasn't a market opportunity or that they didn't have the resources. It was the way that they looked at sequencing their hires. And that's why buying back your time, people don't understand is that if you don't build the business right, you'll hit this thing I call the pain line. And entrepreneurs will not grow into pain. They'll literally sabotage themselves, sell the business, or decide to stall. Those are the 3 S's. And what I've discovered is, it doesn't matter if you sell the business today and you go do something else, the next thing will be your ceiling. Like wherever you're at today, that'll be the ceiling and the new thing. You think the grass is greener, it's not. Same problems will emerge, just looks different.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today, we're going to talk about your time and the value that you bring to your organization. We have the author of Buy Back Your Time. He is Dan Martell. He is someone I've known for years, and we have an incredible conversation, a little bit longer than normal. So brace yourself, probably about 25 minutes plus. But we talk about, why you need to look at your time differently. What are the 3 steps inside of the loop that most people just aren't paying attention to? They show up every day to get work done, but they're not looking at how they're spending their time more efficiently. They're not really reflecting on the details. He talks about the calendar and energy audit. And I'm going to stress the word energy because that really is an important piece to this. He also talks about, the sequences of hires and what you should be looking at. And it's probably not what you think. He looks at these things very differently. And I think it's smart for you to look at what he's saying and really look at how it could apply in your life and see if it's a fit. I respect Dan tremendously and what he's doing and what he's done, and talking about his book, Buy Back Your Time, great way for you to really look at yourself differently and what's going on. He is a king in the SaaS world, but that doesn't matter. This book is applicable to everyone, and it really is something that I think you should take a look at. My job is to help you be the best leader you can be, help you build a team that really does have commitment and buy-in. And those are the 2 ways in which I serve. I am an executive coach. I work with founders, CEOs, and executive teams to really help them perform at a higher level. That's my primary business over the last 10 years. But I also have a leadership development arm in my business where we have a team of leadership coaches that go in and train and develop and coach your managers to be leaders. Think about that again. To turn your managers into leaders. That is the key. You want to make sure that you have that, and it will allow you to focus your time on the right things and buy back your time, but through developing the team around you, the ones you already have. There's a lot of details inside that, but if you think you're interested in one of the things that we offer, the executive coaching or the leadership development, make sure you go to genehammett.com, schedule time with me. Let's talk about it, create a blueprint. If you like the plan, you can execute on it. If you don't like the plan, then you don't have to use it. Absolutely free to you if you are of the right size company. Details on the page, genehammett.com, schedule your time. Let's go right into the interview with Dan. You'll enjoy it. Dan, how are you?
Gene, I'm incredible, and I'm so excited to be here. And I want to call the shot. I want to call this shot that this is one of the best podcast interviews you ever do. I know that's a big promise, but we're going to see if I can deliver on it.
We've done over 950, so
I know. That's why I'm calling the
do.
shot. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. But again, I'd rather do something interesting than mediocre.
Well, I'm going to set you up a little bit, but I'm going to let you go a little bit deeper. I have been, watching you from afar. We met like 5 or 6 years ago at a friend's event, Keith Yackey, Amplify in Vegas. But you are masterful at creating content that for me is just really precise. It's fun. The way you do it is great. I continue to follow you, even though I don't have a SaaS company, which is where you focus, I guess, most of your time. I know you've got a venture fund as well, which we'll talk a little bit about that. Fill in some of the gaps here on just, where you are right now. We'll go into the history in a minute.
Yeah, today I'm the CEO essentially of two 8-figure companies. One's called SaaS Academy, which is the largest CEO coaching firm for software CEOs. Been doing that for 5 years. Super love that. And then I have High Speed Ventures, which is my essentially family office investment vehicle. So I have a team that supports me there. We look at deals, we invest in companies. I've done over 50 investments, $4 billion companies, a lot of public offerings lately. Have a lot of fun there. I have two kids that are incredible, 11 months apart. So Irish twins. I've got a beautiful wife who is just like the coolest person in the world. She's like my best friend. And then I also stay pretty active. I did 3 Ironman this year. We traveled for almost 12 weeks out of the year. I do mountain bike trips and snowboard trips and snow biking trips and wake surfing. And I'm just somebody that likes to squeeze as much life out of the day. And I refuse to slow down. And it drives my wife nuts. But I think it's why I've been called to write the book I just wrote. And it's why a lot of people turn to me to figure out how they can get more done in their business.
Well, incredible way to frame this in at the beginning. And I want to go a little bit in the history. You've shared openly about some of the struggles you've had growing up as a kid, being in jail. And I know the story. I just realized it because I listened to another podcast preparing for you today. But give us just like the 5-sentence version of how you were in jail as a kid.
Yeah, I grew up in a challenging environment. A lot of chaos in my household. Didn't have a lot of self-worth. Diagnosed with ADHD when I was 11. Felt like I was broken. I literally thought okay, I'm not a normal person and I'll never do much with my life, and got introduced to drugs and started spending time with people twice my age and getting in trouble with the law, and just life spiraled out of control to a point where I got in a high-speed chase and almost took my life by pointing a gun at the police. And in that moment that I went for the gun, it got stuck and I woke up sober in a jail cell. And then I spent the next 18 months, 6 months in prison, adult prison, due to the severity of my crime, then in rehab. And I did 11 months in therapy, kind of rebuilding the relationship that I lost with my family and the trust and my friends, the good friends. And it was at the end of that program, I actually discovered how to write code, helping Rick, this maintenance guy, clean out one of the camps. It was built in an old church camp. And that's how I got into software. I literally taught myself how to code when I was 17, got out 97, discovered this little thing called the internet, and have gone on to become pretty obsessed around this thing called software as a service. And, 6 years ago, I started teaching everything I know online on my YouTube channel. And it's just been one of the biggest gifts I can point to, other than my kids. It's just like building an audience of people that are passionate about the thing that I love to do and teaching them everything I learn. And it just creates this beautiful kind of this loop where the more I learn, the more I give, the more I give, the more I get. And then I just keep reinvesting it and supporting other people in their dreams. And it's just like so much fun.
Well, I appreciate you telling the story. I know you've exited successfully 3 times. Is that right? Businesses?
Yeah.
And
3 companies that I was the founder of. Yeah.
You've got some philosophies around this, and you've also had some failed startups as well. Give us just an overview of those philosophies of how to exit the smart way.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I struggled for a long time is because I just didn't know, I didn't grow up in a big city with mentors and people that I could point to that have done what I was trying to do. I was literally just by myself writing code, building software in a small town in Eastern Canada. So it took me a while to figure it out. And honestly, it was reading business books, which sounds nuts, but I didn't for a long time. 7 years of building businesses, never read a business book. Finally started reading business books, hired a coach, this guy named Bob Simpson. He was an E-Myth coach. And he's the one that helped me kind of understand how business works and the fundamentals and having vision and culture and values and teams and all this stuff. And that was the beginning. What I've learned about scaling companies to exit is a bunch of stuff, right? I've helped probably, I think in the last year, 36 companies exit, many of them 9-figure, 8-figure, couple public offerings right now, through some SPACs. That's the new thing, go public on a SPAC. But I would say the first rule is you should always build a business that you could sell, because a company you could sell is a great company to run. So a lot of people, even if they're not interested in selling their company, they should try to understand what it would look like and I talked about value drivers and value detractors. So, a long time ago, one of my mentors, asked me like, what's your exit strategy? And I was like, I don't have one. Like, I'm building this company. I like the people. And he's like, here's the deal. It's like, if you don't know what the buying market would value, then you don't even know if what you're doing, because like every year you wake up and you like plan to make your business better, but you could work on something that is better for you, but not valuable to somebody else that's going to buy you. And it's a decision. So it's like, even going out and talking to potential buyers today, if you don't plan on selling, is a smart idea. It's why most of my clients, they hire these investment bankers to help them with the exit. And by the time they go through all the processes of like cleaning up the business and the financials and the processes and the people and all these things, they're like, I don't want to sell anymore. It's actually like a great company to operate, because they usually have to fix all the things that are broken, like pricing and, product and, customer success or whatever it is. So to me, it's understanding value drivers, value detractors, reducing those. So value detractors could be like no signed contracts, right? Or, this is a crazy one that always hooks people up, especially in the software game, is like no IP assignment clause in their contract or employment agreements, like just stuff like that. So cleaning up the business. And then in regards to getting a strategic exit, because there's two different types of buyers. There's a financial buyer and a strategic buyer. And I mean, the multiples are like, it can be double or triple the difference, right? It could be like 10 million versus 50 million. A strategic buyer, the way I do it, I call it the 21 people rule. At the end of the day, most businesses, if they sit down and they like think about what are the 7 potential acquirers that could buy my business, just thinking about that, like, okay, what are the 7 companies that could buy my business? Who are they? Then the 3 people at each company they should get to know. And the 3 people are very simple. They think it's the CEO. And although that person's important, there's actually 2 other roles. One's corporate development, right? So somebody literally at the company is responsible. If these are bigger companies, strategic acquirers, they're responsible for finding M&A deals. Like there's literally a person in a company at Google, at Facebook, that they get fired if they don't find companies to acquire. Then there's the CEO, obviously. That's pretty obvious because, they're going to make the decision at the end of the day. But the other person is, I think the most important is the product manager. It's the person that, because like product managers make a decision. It doesn't matter if you're like a physical, DTC brand, because I sit on the board of a company called Pila. So I know their market well. So it doesn't matter what kind of business you are. Somebody at the acquirer is going to decide, do we do this ourselves or do we just buy this, right? It's the buy versus build decision. So if you think of like 7 potential target acquirers for your business, strategic buyers, 3 people each, that's why it's a rule of 21. That's 21 people. So my rule is for all my clients, if you just spend the next 2 years trying to build relationships with those 21 people, the outsized return of you having a relationship with those people, even if you hire an investment banker to help you with the process, is going to be dramatically bigger than if you don't do that work. And it's just a decision. It's a decision of going, oh, I'm going to this event. Oh, look, these 3 companies, they're sponsors. So I'm going to reach out to them to see if the CEO is going to be in town and maybe I can do dinner. Stuff like that. That's that to me, it's like knowing who could buy you and how to understand what they value and try to optimize your business for that. That's how you get the biggest outcomes on an exit.
Now, Dan just was talking about what is the market for your business. So in your industry, look at recent sales, just like you would a recent house sale. Look at things that you feel like they've sold for, and try to find out as much information as you can. Who bought them? Why they bought them? Find out what's really available. Use your network to figure out what are the big things that are going on inside your industry as it turns to value. What are those levers, if you will? One of the biggest that most people don't even think about because they're so integrated into their business is the value that your business is stronger if you're not required to be there. Think about that for a second. You're not required to run the meetings. You're not required to drive sales forward. You're not required to innovate, create new content. And so if you want to increase the value of your business, you want to make sure it runs efficiently without you. Not to say that you're going to, take off and go fishing for 6 months, but you could. And the business will run without you. That will be the highest value business. Now, there's some many other factors that go in there, but if your business is required you to run it and you have the personal relationships with everyone, the partners and the clients, it will detract from your value. So keep that in mind as you move forward. But I think it's wise what Dan said. You should know the value of your company way before the time you want to sell it so that you can do the things you need to do to sell it. back to Dan. I got to point something out to our audience. The brilliance of Dan Martell and the way he thinks about things, creating a name for something like 21 People Rule, and how the details behind that. It's easy to remember. It's easy for people to digest. But you are a master at this. And I'm going to switch gears on your book, because I know that writing a book is hard, and it forces you to get even more clear about those ideas. And you can't put everything you know into a book. So I want to talk about Buy Back Your Time. But I wanted to highlight too how brilliant you are with content and sharing that with others. The book Buy Back Your Time, I always ask every author the same question. Why did you have to write this book?
It's very simple. My passion, as much as we were just talking about our mutual friend, Jason Swank, like when I started, like my real passion is entrepreneurship. Even though everybody knows me as the software as a service guy, my brother's a home builder. My best friend owns a sign shop. My other friend owns an HVAC company. My other friend owns a plumbing company. Like I'm just so pro entrepreneur. And over the years, I've just been around a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs and founders, build a company that they grew to hate. And the reason they grew to hate it is it was not because there wasn't a market opportunity or that they didn't have the resources. It was the way that they looked at sequencing their hires. And that's why buying back your time, people don't understand, is that if you don't build the business right, you'll hit this thing I call the pain line. And entrepreneurs will not grow into pain. They'll literally sabotage themselves, sell the business, or decide to stall. Those are the 3 S's. And what I've discovered is, it doesn't matter if you sell the business today and you go do something else, the next thing will be your ceiling. Like wherever you're at today, that'll be the ceiling and the new thing. You think the grass is greener, it's not. Same problems will emerge, just looks different. You'll run into that. Stalling is not a decision because the market's growing. GDP growth happens every year, whether you like it or not. Your customers are not going to expect less from you next year. They're going to expect more. And your team, this is the worst one, is that if you decide, I don't want to grow anymore. I had a friend of mine, Matt, say that to me. He owned an electrician company. It's like, is it okay if I don't want to grow? I'm like, it's okay, but who are your best people on your team? And he's like, oh, these 2 guys are the rock stars. I go, great. They will leave. Because what I've discovered is if your dreams aren't big enough for everybody else on your team's dreams to fit inside of, they won't stay. They'll find somebody that's going to play that future for them, that vehicle for them. And then selling or sabotaging is the other one. And sabotaging is funny because, they could grow the business, but they drag their feet. They make decisions. I had one of my clients, very successful, just post in our private group where he put off pushing on the business because he knew if he pushed on these new creative strategies that it would create more chaos in his calendar. So he didn't push. And the big move after working with him for 6 months of just like trying to show him the light was he hired somebody that's now running revenue. And all of a sudden his creativity and his desire to push has been unblocked because there's no more pain line. See, he was hitting the pain line with all these new ideas because it would mean his calendar would go into chaos. So the buyback principle states we don't hire people to grow our business. We hire people to buy back our time. I call it calendar over capacity. And if we follow the buyback loop, which it's a methodology essentially, and it never stops. The buyback loop is part of, it doesn't matter if you're starting at 0 and you're an employee or you're a business owner, you've got a big company. The buyback loop states that when we hit the pain line, we follow this 3-step sequence. We audit our calendar using a time and energy audit that I teach. Then we transfer all the low value energy sucking tasks out of our lives. Okay. That's the T, audit, transfer. And then fill is we fill up that time with things that increase the value creation that we can bring to our hour, to our week, and with things that light us up, because there's this compound effect of our ability to produce outcomes when we're working on things that light us up. And most people don't understand that. Like, that's why I call it an energy audit, because even stacking activities in your day that compound a positive energy focus will literally, I mean, just think about this. If you just got in a fight with a team member, or you just got off this meeting you didn't want to be on, or you like had to sit down and process like 90 minutes worth of financial crap you didn't want to do. And then the next thing you got to like sit down for 60 minutes and go do sales calls or outreach or prospecting. It's just like you have an energy that you're bringing to that task that's going to be felt by the people on the other end. Like, it's so weird that people don't think about this. So when I teach people this buyback loop, it's not hard to quickly get some big wins and start building momentum upwards. And I'm not a 4-hour work week guy. Like, I'm not trying to teach people to buy back their time and outsource and have a virtual assistant, all these things so that they can go do nothing. I actually want them to build the empire. I want them to create more in the world, because entrepreneurs literally wake up every day to make the world a better place for every other human to live in. If they didn't do that, they wouldn't be in business. And I want them to do that 1,000 times more.
Now, Dan just said something, and I'm paraphrasing this for sure. Your dreams must be big enough for them. And what he really means behind that is that if you have a low bar for your dreams, you just want to, kind of coast away into, retirement, you might lose some of your highest value employees. So you want to make sure that your dream for the company, the vision that you have, where you guys are going, is inspiring. And it's something they want to get behind. It's something that your best employees are looking for, a career path. They may be looking to go out on their own, and you're giving them a reason if you're not growing at the pace at which they feel like they're growing. And so you want to make sure that you create the kind of company that is expanding so that they feel like they're expanding. I know that's a little bit of a circular talk, but the real key here is if you don't dream big enough, you're going to lose the key employees. You're going to lose the opportunity to continue to grow and be stable. So you want to grow or die. Back to Dan. I want to go back to something you said, Dan, about the sequence of hires. Most of the people listening in here, fast growth companies, Inc. 5000 founders, CEOs, probably have 20 to 100 employees. But what do you share about the sequence of hires that would help them?
I think it's understanding the time and energy audit. So like what I do with clients is a 2-week audit, and we highlight in red anything that takes their energy and highlight in green anything that gives them energy. And then we use a $1 or $4 sign kind of like kind of mark of like the task itself. And if I had to pay somebody, and it depends, if you're a 1,000-person CEO, it's not about like, what does a $1 mean? It's just for you, what does it mean? Is it something low level? Is it kind of like medium? Is it more advanced, or is it like kind of only stuff that you feel you can do, $1 to $4 signs? Then you take everything in the $1 or $2 sign bucket that's red and you get it out of your world. And like this, it doesn't matter what level you're at. But I think if people just do like a quick mental version of this and think to themselves, what would end up on that list? Now they'll get stuck. They'll be like, oh, I can't afford this. My answer would be like, you may have to make some personnel changes. Or they'll go like, oh, that won't be easy to get somebody else to do. I get that you don't believe that to be easy. I can show you how it's freakingly easy. I teach a framework called the camcorder method, and how to create playbooks is like super simple. It's how I've scaled all my companies. And once you just like start to play with this, then you will have the capacity to grow your business. It's a mathematical equation. Like $10 million companies were not built off $10 tasks. So the game we're all playing is becoming a better time trader. When we start off in the world, we trade our time for money. That's called being an employee. That's a level 1 trader. A level 2 trader is trading our money for time. That's being an entrepreneur. That's what it affords us to do, is we now have the ability to buy our time with teams, right? Leverage, labor, collaboration. And then level 3 is we trade money for money. But a lot of people get stuck at level 2 and they don't become world-class time traders, right? They stop it. I mean, I'll give you a really quick example, Gene, because I think people would be like, oh, I get it. Most people do not bring the idea of buying back our time into their personal life, right? It's okay in the business, right? I've built this good executive team, all this stuff. I like get the call and people are like, oh, I'm going to hire a COO. I literally was talking with my clients this morning. He's like, I'm hiring a COO. I'm like, let's get on a call. Show me your org chart. Show me your inbox. Show me your calendar. Within 12 seconds, it was very evident you do not need a COO. You need an executive assistant. And the difference in cost, as you know, Gene, is significant, right? So it's funny how like even just the sequence that people allow themselves to value their time and the task and like, the skill set that they think they have to develop, and then apply that to your home life, right? People, sometimes I coach CEOs and they're like, yeah, I don't have time to do this. I'm too busy with this or this. I'm like, look, you have the time. You can make the time. You're choosing not to. Let's reframe the conversation. You choose not to make this a priority. And I know that like, instead of you doing these things that are low value tasks in your home, like pay somebody to do it. Why are you mowing your own lawn? Well, I like to mow my own lawn. Great. Why don't you mow your neighbor's lawn? Well, I don't like to do it that much. Gotcha. You don't like to do it. You're worried about what your neighbor's going to think. You're worried about what your dad's going to think. You're worried about what you're going to think of yourself. You're going to think you're lazy. You're not lazy. You're making a conscious decision to say, instead of waking up Saturday morning and spending 2 hours mowing my lawn or doing the honeydew list, you're going to go to the gym and you're going to become healthier. You're going to become stronger. You have more energy for your family. They deserve that. And for your team, they deserve it. And for your customer. And anytime you need to start analyzing and asking yourself, when you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else inadvertently. And if you don't know where you're making those trades, it's just super important. So the buyback loop methodology applies to every CEO at every level of a company. It's, I got to spend a week with Richard Branson, and he's the billionaire every other billionaire wants to be like. I talk about him in the book, and I watched him operate technically ownership of 400 companies. Okay. Virgin Group of Businesses has 400 companies. And he literally spent 90 minutes a day running his empire, and then the rest of the time with us on a ski hill in Switzerland. And if you want to talk about somebody that's understood the value of his time and how to find leverage and how to do only the things that he wants to do that lights him up, that creates the most value in the world for his portfolio of companies, this is a guy you should model. Warren Buffett's another one. Oprah's another one. And it goes all the way down to all the creative people like Tom Clancy to Andy Warhol. I talk about these people in the book because Gary Vaynerchuk does this. He has 25 to 30 people called Team Gary, and they wake up every day. That's got to be a multi-million-dollar payroll. And they wake up every day to buy back Gary's time so he can be Gary 100% of the time. And he's producing and he's creating and he's lighting himself up, and it doesn't feel like work. It's effortless, right? And you don't have to be Gary. You can be Warren Buffett and be a capital allocator, and it can look completely different. But at the end of the day, that is what we're all trying to do. So I usually do kind of the buyback loop time and energy audit every 4 months, because I'm always adding capacity to my life that then hits a new level of friction, the pain line, and I got to buy back my time.
Well, we're talking about Buy Back Your Time with Dan Martell, the author. Books, available now when this comes out, because I know it's coming out January 16th, right? The week of that?
January 17th, it is coming out, and it's furious. I'm literally pushing, and it's buybackyourtime.com is the URL, but you can buy it on Amazon, all the different retailers. It's a pretty exciting project.
A couple of questions as we wrap this up. I'm a little over my normal time, but just is such a good conversation. I think a lot of leaders struggle with, hiring that next person. What is your best tip for hiring the right person for your company? Give me the short answer for that.
It's going to sound repetitive, but it's literally the calendar. So the next person for you to hire, doesn't matter who you are, is the person that's going to cost you the least amount of money, that's going to buy the most things out of your calendar that suck your energy. It's literally, it's a first principle. If you're the CEO, you need to protect yourself. Most people fail in business because the CEO decides, I don't want to do this anymore. Or they decide, I'm just going to Gene, how many times have you seen people? They're like, I'll let my team run things. I'm going on vacation for a month. Right. And it's like you're sabotaging your success because you just got to a place where you just don't want to be honest that you hate what you're doing. You wake up and you're like, I don't want to go to these meetings or et cetera. So it's again, my client this morning, we were talking about should I hire a COO? I was like, no, you literally need to hire a director of product, and you need to hire a director of revenue and a director of, because his frustration was not, I want somebody to run the company. His frustration is I'm babysitting people and I don't feel like I'm not enjoying the meetings anymore. And he thought I'm going to do a silver bullet, Hail Mary, hire a COO. They're going to run the company. I'll be the visionary, this whole integrator traction stuff. And it usually doesn't work like that. So to me, this is true for my life. That's why I have a house manager in my personal world. For some people listening, the next hire is somebody that takes care. My house manager is the CEO of everything that I would personally do. Insurance, registration, passports, cleaning, maintenance, you name it. She takes care of all stuff, storage. I don't think about it. My wife doesn't think about it. Purchasing, unpacking, putting stuff together, meal prep, food, everything is our house manager. because I don't want to do that stuff. I'd rather have that time back, and it's the most efficient dollar exchange, right? Some people should not upgrade the new BMW or Mercedes and instead get somebody in their house to help them out. Like my neighbors are the worst. Like they literally see how we live and they're like, yeah, I don't have time to work out the way you do because I did 3 Ironmans this year. They're like, well, I don't know where you find the time. It's like, well, I know where I found the time. I wasn't doing what you were doing on Saturday morning. Instead, I was on a bike. Not saying that that's a fun trade. My buddy goes like, I don't want to buy back my time to do Ironman, Dan. You're silly. And I'm like, look, you don't have to, you can do whatever you want with your time. I'm just saying you'll never hear me complain that I don't have the time because I'm always trying to ask myself the question is like, where do I find the leverage? Right? The answer's there. Like, you can get it. Just you have to do the work. You have to figure out like where's the answer to this.
I never do this, but I want to do a speed round with you. And I know it's a challenge for those that have a lot to say, but you've got so much more to share. I don't want to have an extra long episode for our audience. But quick answers here. How many free days do you have now?
As many as I choose, but I don't work after 3 and I don't work on weekends, but I do work every day. So I say that, and I work every morning for at least 90 minutes because I'm a momentum builder and I personally like it. Now, just my work looks different than most people.
How many hours a week are you in meetings?
Not often, because I only do meetings in the afternoons for about 3 hours a day. So whatever that would work out, 15 hours a week.
That's still a lot of meetings, but you have a big team.
Well, when I say meetings, this is a meeting. So,
Okay.
so like a meeting is anytime I'm meeting with somebody else.
All right.
Yeah, sorry. My executive meetings for one company is only 3 hours. I do Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that's it.
How much time do you spend leading other people, coaching them, and like on your team?
It's kind of all I do. Like that's what I consider my job as a CEO, right? I build the people and the people build the business.
What's the biggest mindset shift that's necessary for people to buy back their time?
That they're worth it, understanding their value of an hour. And then my rule is the buyback rate, simple math, is whatever you get paid per hour. If you're a CEO, your income, take that hourly rate and divide it by 4. That's your buyback rate. You shouldn't be doing anything you could pay somebody else to do for that amount of money.
I would imagine you've had different places in time where you get a lot of email. A lot of our clients get overload of email. So what's your favorite tip on email overload?
I don't do email. I literally do not do email. I call it, some people call it inbox zero. I call it zero inbox. You interact with me, Gene.
Explain it.
You know, it's not me. My inbox is managed by my executive assistant. I refuse to do email. We talk every day. If something needs to be talked about, we talk about it. This is what I learned by Richard Branson. He literally has a 90-minute meeting with his assistant, Helen, every morning. She does all of his inbox, all of his messages, all come to her. And she only brings to him the things she doesn't know how to route. And as they have these meetings, they learn. And my assistant just kept getting better at routing.
And then finally, what's your favorite calendar tip? I know you talked about the audit, but what would you say helps you with overload?
Everything is in my calendar, including the big rocks, personal stuff, everything. And anything I need to do the meeting is in the calendar invite, including personal creative projects I'm working on. So I never have to wonder what I need to do or where the information is. It's always part of the calendar, and that's my rule.
I love you being here, sharing this insights, your wisdom about buy back your time, but it's so much more than that. Anyone who wants to really shift the way they're showing up, and I think building their empire, making an impact in the world, definitely wants to buy this book. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure, Gene. Thank you. It's been an honor. And hopefully I delivered on my commitment to make this the most action-packed time.
Wow, what a great interview. I love his detail and focus on where you should be doing this. I love talking about the calendar and time audit. I use a very similar process with my clients. We can look at your calendar and tell very quickly how you're spending it. If I showed you my calendar, you would see I spend a lot of time with my team and my clients. I choose to do this. This is my core of my business as an executive coach. And if you hired me, you would know that I'm always going to make time for you as my client, but you want to make sure you're looking at your time. If you're going to too many meetings, if you feel them draining your energy, you want to make sure you are able to step away from that. You're empowering those around you. That's the real part of leadership, making sure that those people are prepared. And then all of the details that you talked about in here about buy back your time, totally smart. everything, including the personal aspects, having a house manager. This is something we've actually been looking at in my family. We have some of the details, but we're piecing it together as we really focus on this. All of this is unpacked inside this episode. So hopefully you took notes and you are ready to execute at a higher level. My job is to help you do that. When you think of leadership and you think of growth Think Tank. As always, think of courage. We'll see you next time.